Hey everybody, Wildman Wess here, and welcome to Game Central Station. Today's going to be a little bit different. We don't have a game to play, but we're going to be talking about games. Now, throughout the world right now, we've got a huge pandemic going on, so a lot of conventions were canceled due to it, and one of them in particular was the E3 Expo. This convention is basically about a lot of video games that are coming out to market, and as well as software and hardware for all you hardcore gamers. One thing in particular, or a company in particular, that I've been really forward to looking at more often is Arcade1Up. Some of you that have been around for the last year probably saw the video where I unboxed the Mortal Kombat cabinet and built it and did a little review on it. So today we're going to be talking about 4 cabinets that are coming out onto market within this next year, or possibly already coming out now, and whether or not they are worth buying. So the first one that we're going to be talking about is the Sega Arcade Classic. This one is Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder, the original Golden Axe, Altered Beast, Shinobi, and Wrestle War. This is the very first cabinet from Arcade1Up that we have 5 games. This is pretty awesome. And not just that, but it is the first time we get to play the second Golden Axe at home instead of having to go to an arcade for a change. And also this cabinet is a 4-player. So that's pretty awesome because the first 4-player that came out through Arcade1Up was the Ninja Turtles Duo. So we're going to be talking about the pros and cons about each cabinet, and for this one, the big pro about this one is we get to play Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder. I've been trying to play this on MAME ROM for a long time, offset of a laptop. I've tried to soft mod a lot of consoles, and for some reason that ROM just doesn't want to work. I'm not sure why, but maybe, who knows, I might be able to fix it in the near future. But also, we get some classics like Wrestle War. This one did get a arcade home port to the Sega Genesis. It looked pretty well, but at the same time, it's one of those games that you really rarely get to play, and rarities are... that's what I love. I do love that. And not just that, but we get to do an home version of the arcade Shinobi. Now this game came out for the Sega Master System, as well as a kind of hack for the Nintendo Entertainment System. The difference is, in those games, you had an energy bar instead of a one-hit kill. So getting to play this arcade version at home instead of having to go to the arcades is also pretty awesome in my mind. Now the cons on this one, now chances are with a 4-player cabinet, much like the Ninja Turtles one that we got last year, the price tag is going to be close to about $400 if not $450. So with that being said, there's only one game that has 4 players, so technically for having the 4 players to be that price and having 4 other games that are 2-player, it definitely, and especially with Shinobi being 1-player, there is that question, is it worth the price tag? My verdict, yes. Because of the simple fact is, Golden Axe, Revenge of Death Adder, and not just that, you have 5 games to choose from. I mean, this is a new thing, and that's awesome. So, for that, I'm looking forward to it, and maybe I might buy it in the near future, I hope. Next up on the list, we have the Capcom X-Men/Marvel cabinet. This one has Marvel vs. Capcom. We've been waiting for this one, and I'm excited. We also have X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and X-Men Children of the Atom. The big pro on this one is Marvel vs. Capcom. I mean, come on. That is one of the hardest arcade games I've ever played. I'm sure a lot of other people have done speedruns and beaten the crap out of it. To this day, I still can't beat Onslaught at the end. Maybe one of these days I might be able to, but only time will tell. The other thing about this one is it has X-Men vs. Street Fighter. That's another arcade classic from Capcom where you had one of the greatest crossovers of all time. And that one I pumped a lot of quarters into and beat many times. And it would be nice to get to play it on a cabinet at home in my own personal just entertainment. Onto the cons. So X-Men Mutant Academy, not a bad game, but because it is Arcade1Up and is considered an arcade cabinet, X-Men Mutant Apocalypse was on the Super Nintendo. So it kind of begs the question, why do you need a Super Nintendo game on an arcade cabinet? It seems a little weird, however, the game is rather playable and rather enjoyable. The other thing is, X-Men Children of the Atom, though a great game, was on an earlier cabinet that Arcade1Up put out with Marvel superheroes as well as the Punisher. So it just seems like a reprint, so I'm a little leery about that. However, my verdict for this one is still yes, because we get Marvel vs. Capcom and X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Next up on the list, we have the trilogy of NBA Jam. We have the original NBA Jam Tournament Edition as well as NBA Hang Time. So, another 4-player cabinet, much like the Sega classics as well as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This one gives us 3 games of our youth. Mostly for those of us that were kids in the 90s, we played these games in the arcade like no other's business. So once again, the pros on this one, being the 4-player, you get to play 4 players simultaneously, much unlike the originals on Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. Now, with NBA Hang Time, we did get a port for the Nintendo 64, that I remember correctly, and you could play up to 4 players. So that was definitely a plus over its earlier predecessors. However, when it comes to the cons, this is where it's going to be a little bit rough. So, most of us when we were kids playing NBA Jam, there was the rumor mill was going around that Michael Jordan was going to be on the game. However, due to licensing and due to him not wanting to be in that video game, he was never in it. There were a lot of jokes and kind of April Fool's jokes in GamePro and a lot of gaming magazines back in the 90s that gave us kind of this idea. Much like with a lot of other arcade games like Mortal Kombat, that used to say there were hidden Easter eggs that never counted, like Ermac in Part 1, and so on and so forth. Now, here's the other part to that con. You see, because a lot of NBA players are no longer within the franchise, within the company, their likenesses and their contracts could not be attained. So the ones that could be attained are mixed and matched from NBA Jam Tournament Edition as well as Hang Time. The other problem is because of this situation, some of the ROMs had to be hacked, wherein which hidden characters could not be played. I mean, I remember playing, there was a kid that you could select called Air Dog or something like that. I mean, you could play as Bill Clinton, you could play as some of the, pretty much the developers from Midway Arcade, as well as characters from Mortal Kombat, such as Scorpion, Sub-Zero, and Raiden. Unfortunately, they are stricken from this list. Now, it's a mixed bag. For me personally, my verdict, unfortunately, for a lot of you basketball fans out there, I'm going to have to say no. For me, as a fan of the trilogy of the arcade games, I can't. But for those of you that want to buy this one, I recommend it, especially for a conversation piece and also for the 4-player, capabilities. So, I mean, honestly, if it's a collector's piece that you're looking for, this is right up your alley. And finally, on this list of 4 cabinets, we have the 4-game pack of Big Buck Hunter. This is the first light gun game being used by Arcade 1-Up, where we have the original Pro, we have Open Season, we have Safari, and Outback. Now, like I said, this is the first light gun game by Arcade 1-Up, which is really exciting, and that's a big plus, because, some of us have been wanting to play a lot of these light gun games from the cabinet before, when we were talking about NBA Jam coming from Midway. Midway came out with a lot of light gun games back in the day, such as Terminator 2, the arcade game, and the not as popular but catchy Revolution X. So that's really cool, and the fact that there's 4 games on there, so you don't get tired of just playing one of the games. Now, going on to one of the cons that I'm concerned about, but this game hasn't really come out yet, and they haven't really shown the dimensions of the cabinet itself. What I'm worried about is that usually in the deluxe cabinet, it usually stands at about 7 foot, almost, mainly because of the marquee. Now, because of Arcade 1-Up, their cabinets are a little bit smaller, usually roughly about 4 foot, apart from the riser you can get without it, and usually with the riser it gets up to 5 feet. However, with this one, being an adult at about 6 foot, with a cabinet being a little bit lower, I have to squat down a little bit. So it's kind of like you're aiming down, like you're almost, shooting rabbits on the ground or something like that. I don't condone that, by the way. I'm just saying that's kind of what it feels like. However, only time will tell on that, because who knows, maybe this deluxe cabinet might be bigger than we expect. On to the verdict on this one, I say yes. However, much like some of the cabinets that we've had before, and the one that I have for Mortal Kombat, for us adults that really like to get into the game, we do tend to shake that cabinet around. Usually the cabinets are roughly about 30 to 40 pounds, give or take. So if you're moving the gun around a lot, you're probably, going to have to learn some self-control, folks, because you don't want to knock that cabinet over. So other than that, the verdict on this one is yes. So I do have to backtrack just a little bit. When we were talking about the Capcom Marvel X-Men cabinet, one of the cons that I heard about from people online and through social media was the one big question: where is the X-Men arcade game? There is an answer for this. Because this cabinet is mainly trademarked and licensed through Capcom, Konami is the one who made the arcade version, the 6-player arcade version, and also a 4-player and a 2-player. Now, because of Capcom having this cabinet, Konami obviously couldn't really be a part of this as well, because there might be some conflicts in contract. Now, here is my prediction, here's my thoughts on a cabinet that they can really do, because most people love the arcade version that's 6-player for X-Men. However, there is a 4-player that you know is smaller, and there are 2 other 4-player arcade games that Konami put out that are very based on pop culture, like X-Men. I'm predicting the one that, and what I'm recommending Arcade 1-Up should do, my request, I don't know if they're going to listen or not, but maybe, hey, if your voices agree, please put a request in that comment section below or write to Arcade 1-Up. My predictions are X-Men 4-player, The Simpsons 4-player, and G.I. Joe, the 4-player. Honestly, I couldn't think of a better pop culture cabinet than that. And if you disagree with me, I totally understand, but if there are other games on there, and actually another stipulation, there's another 4-player game from pop culture, the very short-lived 90s cartoon Bucky O'Hare. I'm adding that one on there too. So, if there's any other games that you can think of, put it in the comment section below. Who knows, maybe Arcade 1-Up might listen and give you what you want on the epic pop culture cabinet. Other than that, we hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure that you give a thumbs up, give a thumbs down if there's something that you don't like or disagree with on these pros and cons. And also, make sure you share on social media, and as always, push that red button. And don't forget to ring the bell for instant notifications on Dragonfire Entertainment. If there's anything else you want to see on this channel, be sure you leave a request in that comment section below as well, and we'll get to it right away. Until then, I'm Wildman Wess, and we will see you next time. Take care, and be safe.